Bonjour, hi everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this Horizon conference presented by Lenovo. So my name is Victoria Dunn. I am the Community and Partnership Project Manager at Zoo. So each Horizon conference will have a member of Zoo welcome you all into our virtual room, just as we would have done it if it was our actual space in downtown Montreal. So for those who don't know, the Horizon Conference is a series that sheds light on different trends in the tech and creative industries. So thank you so much, Lenovo, our sponsor, for making these great conversations, with entrepreneurs come to life. So today we're so happy to present you guys an amazing panel on the future of events programming. So we have Bruce Hills, the president of Just for Laughs. We have Myriam Achard, chief new media partnerships and public relations at Centre Phi. Nick Farkas, senior vice president, booking concerts and events at Evenko, and moderated by Armand Afkami, director of sales strategy at Landmark. So without further ado, I will pass it along to Armand. Thank you so much for being here and have a great conference.
Thank you so much, Victoria. What a pleasure it is to be here. Hello, Myriam. Hello, Nick. Hello, Bruce. Good afternoon to all of you. I hope you're all doing well. Hello, everyone tuning in at home virtually, whether you're watching us on YouTube Live or Facebook Live. Thank you, all of you, for tuning in. My name's Armand Afkami. Thank you again, Victoria, for the introduction. It's such a pleasure to be here, surrounded by such legends of the scene, of the Montreal scene, of the event scene, and being a part of a conversation that I think we're all interested in. Let's be honest. What's going on with the current events landscape? What is the future of the events landscape looking like? And what's fun is we have, different dimensions from an incredible Montreal venue, an iconic venue, which is the Centre Phi. And we'll have, Myriam talk about that very shortly and what they've been up to, as well as the comedy festival, Just for Laughs. Let's be honest, it's big events of that magnitude. What's the future of those events? How are they surviving in a digital world? And what's to come? And then, of course, on the music side, having one of the icons in the Montreal music scene with Nick Farkas. We're lucky to have you and start this conversation around what's going on. Let's be honest, we're all waiting for live events. This pandemic's crippled the industry. We're all aware of that. We've seen some great things, some great adaptations, some great new technologies, kind of bring us to different places in terms of, what do we call now? We call hybrid events. What's the future of hybrid events? What are we going to take away from all the things that we've learned this year? And how are we going to carry those moving forward? So I'm really, really excited to be moderating this panel and to have the chance to start that dialogue. So just a bit about the day and the program. So, I'll introduce each of the panelists and they'll have time to talk about, the last year and how they've had to adapt. And let's call it the word of 2020, pivot. Everyone's pivoting and adapting. And also after that, we'll open the conversation. We'll have a more of a question and answer period between the four of us. And I'd like each and every one of you to queue up any questions you might have starting right now, because at the end of our panel, we'll open up to questions from the audience. So feel free to just type in those questions as we're presenting or as we're chatting, and we'll get to those at the end of the conference as well, at the end of the panel, to make sure to answer as many of your questions. I know there's a record number of attendees, so thank you all of you for tuning in. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it off to our first panelist, Myriam Achard, who again leads up new media partnerships and public relations at Centre Phi. Myriam, such a pleasure having you on the panel, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say about Centre Phi.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Bonjour. I'd like to thank actually Jeanne and Guillaume from Zoo for this invitation. Very happy to be with you today. I'm going to be talking to you about the Phi Center, the Centre Phi, what we've been doing for the last year, and what we think we will be doing in the near future. So I think that pivot, adapt are the words that needs to be part of our vocabulary for sure. So maybe if I take us back to spring 2020, on March 13, when we had to close our doors, like everybody else in Quebec, in Canada, the first question for us was really, what are we going to do? The public, the people are used to come to us. How can we go to their home? Yes, you can keep the contact with different social platforms, but for us it was not enough. So the first project that came out of this distress, and it was a distress, is a project called VR to go. It was a team idea. After a brainstorming, we went like, okay, we are known for showing XR at the Phi Center, so virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality. This is one of the things we are doing, and we went like, okay, we are not able to welcome people to do VR at the center. How can we bring virtual reality to their home? And that's how the project VR to go was created. So VR to go is a project that was launched, as I said, in the first confinement, where people can rent from us VR headsets. The headsets are delivered to people's home. People are keeping the VR headset for 48 hours, and then we pick it up back, we clean everything, obviously, and then it's sent back to somebody else's house. So maybe we can launch a quick teaser on VR to go, and then I'll tell you more about it. So virtual reality at home. First program was launched in the spring. We launched the second program just now in January. It's very successful, and I have to say that when we launched it in the spring of last year, we didn't know if it was something that we would keep offering when our doors would reopen. And actually, last summer, when we were allowed to reopen for like a 3 months window, we kept the offering, and we realized that this offering was something that has a value. Even though people could come back to the center to experience virtual reality, our headsets, like the people were still renting it. So this is something that will stay. When we go back to a certain normality, this offer will stay. VR to go now is also offered in Quebec City. We have a partner over there with whom we launched it in the fall. Just a few weeks ago, we launched VR to go in Paris, and we are launching next week VR to go in Luxembourg. So this is the first project I wanted to highlight in the light of what we did to adapt to the crisis. Another beautiful project that we launched also last spring is called Parallel Lines. Parallel Lines is a virtual artistic residency. So we launched an open call for artists. We selected 10 artists coming from different backgrounds. We gave them each artist $2,000 to be able to create a piece of art during the confinement. They had 60 days to produce something. Depending on which, from which it could be like in literature, in music, in immersive, in painting, and we documented the creative process with them. After 60 days, we created a digital exhibition of their work, and actually today we are reopening the Phi Center, and as part of the reopening, one of the offer is that we are presenting Parallel Line in a physical format. So there is a physical exhibition to the virtual artistic residency that took place last spring. This was another project I wanted to highlight. Last summer, I take you away from digital art, I bring you to music. We had a series called Sonication, where we hosted some live music events on the roof of the Phi Center. We broadcasted that after that on different platforms, and this was also a very big success. Again, not able to have live music events with hundreds of people in the center, then we bring music to people's home via some concerts that are taking place on the roof of the center. Maybe another one I wanted to highlight also is actually something we launched last week called Infrared. Infrared are actually 7 sleepless nights live broadcasted from the Phi Center during the curfew. So it starts at night and it's live until the morning. We have artists coming from different backgrounds, different disciplines that are actually taking over the center. It's a bit like a night at the museum, if you'd like. And last night we had Jeremy Dutcher as a guest artist, and he's coming back tonight. And this idea was also really actually thought before we were allowed to reopen. We knew that we were allowed to reopen in February. It was really like because of the curfew, and we went like, okay, how can we entertain, if you want, people during the nights, like sleepless nights maybe. So I could go on. I think I have I made my 8 minutes, but again, you have to be agile, you need to adapt, you need to explore. And I think those are the words that we need to needs to be part of our vocabulary for the next few years for sure.
Thank you so much, Miriam. And again, congrats on adapting and creating all those new opportunities for other creators and highlighting them through the Centre Phi. And as I can tell, you guys have not been sleeping on anything. You guys have been very active, and I'm happy to hear, and I'm sure everyone else is really captivated on all the fun stuff you guys are doing, and we're looking forward to hearing what will be your next projects as well, so we will continue following that. So thanks again, Miriam. Next, my old boss, Bruce Hills, the president of Just for Laughs. For those who don't know, I had the pleasure of working with him for close over 10 years. So Bruce, off to you. And
is that how you're describing it now?
Okay, it was mostly fun. Off to you, Bruce.
Okay, well, thank you. Listen, Armin, good to see you, and glad you're doing so well. You did a great job for JFL for many years, and I know you're doing some good work in Toronto, but we miss you. Also wanted to thank the Zoo for including me and Miriam and Nick in this interesting conversation. I appreciate it, and what I'll do is I'll just sort of walk you through where we focused our attention this year on the festival front, because we're a business that has a festival business, a concert business, and a media business. But I think the most pertinent case study, I would say, would be what happened in Montreal. So if we go back to around this time last year, I'd say about 4 to 6 weeks into COVID, it was pretty clear we were not going to be able to do a festival of any scale in July. So we started to work on our online strategy. The good news that we are a company that has lots of experience in that space. And again, I know it's an overused word, but we were able to pivot pretty, we were able to transition, I would say, pretty easily. I mean, it didn't come without its challenges, but, we successful have to be partially online anyway. So this time, we were pretty certain on the English side that we would, of our business, because we have the Franco, Juste Pour Rire, and JFL in English, that we were going to have to be entirely online. Therefore, in October, we pushed our dates just in case things got better to October 9th and 10th, and we created a 2-day, first time ever, 100% virtual, 100% free online festival. And maybe before I jump into a little bit more of the explanation, we should run the video, because I think it will actually tell the tale to a large degree of who was in it, and maybe we could run that now. So there you go. So it gives you a pretty good idea of the level of talent that we secured. But I need to point out that the key deal for this event to have the success it did was to tie in our longtime, friend and megastar Kevin Hart and his company Laugh Out Loud, because not only was Kevin able to program one of the three rooms in English, that is, um, he also was able to go out and promote this to his 150 million social media followers, which obviously is exposure that you can buy, but it would be cost prohibitive. Especially, the fact that Kevin was so, um, persistent to get the word out to his fans because he knew they would love what we were doing together. So that made a huge difference. And luckily for us, we started a relationship when Kevin was an unknown, and being able to stay in business with this man for a long time, and always willing to support JFL, loves Montreal and loves the comedy community and wants to support it. So again, just to give you a little bit of detail here, the event was basically, we programmed it over three virtual rooms running simultaneously. So you could sort of, instead of club hopping, you could virtually hop between whatever event you wanted to check out. And we made sure the proposition was rich, that was dense. As you saw, we had some big heavy hitters. We opened the festival with a conversation with Kevin Hart and Judd Apatow. We had conversations led by influential figures like Kenya Barris and Sarah Cooper and Wanda Sykes and Gina Yashere. We also had films, we had stand-up, we had panels about different subjects. As you saw, we had a great event with Canada's Drag Race, and we also had a panel with Stephen Colbert's new show, Tuning Out the News, something that we do a lot of in Montreal because we have the fan piece, but we also have the industry piece. And this event sort of combined both. It gave comedy fans a chance to sort of look into the green room a little bit, but also if you just wanted to watch a funny show, Kevin Hart filmed stand-up from his studio in LA that went out live and was great. And we created a real comedy event that at the end of the day had 352 performers, 48 shows between the Just for Rire and Just for Last program. Attendance under 800,000 people with 5.3 million minutes of entertainment viewing time. And the feedback was fantastic. The research that we did, that 90% thought what we did was great, and 87% said they would return next year, which was a huge achievement for us because as much as we were and are producing events in the virtual space, and we're doing lots of work online, to actually curate over 2 days with top level talent, meet people's expectations when they're disappointed they're not able to go to the live festival. I have to say I was extremely impressed with the team that put that together. And of course, Charles DeCarry that I work with, who pushed this forward and made sure we got it financed to do something not just for the financial reasons, but to make sure it was putting the brand forward in a big way. Um, and do I have 90 seconds left, or how much more do I have to? Okay, all right. Just want to finish up. Great press we received. Of course, the trades were all over this: Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, Vulture. And I think what it proved to us is that we should never do a festival again anywhere in the world, especially Montreal, that isn't hybrid. Um, Being able to do an online piece only increases our profile, increases the exposure for artists, for brands, for Tourism Montreal. Even in my conversations with the president of Tourism Montreal, Yves Lalumière, I was halfway into comforting him. Don't worry, we're not going to be online all the time only. He said, no, 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 no. That's a great sales message to the world. Wouldn't a comedy fan want to come and see that live? So in the future, I see our footprint, live footprint, will only continue grow as it has, but the online piece could grow significantly and help us grow our business and grow the attention that I believe the festival could increase. Next year, this year's festival will be July 15th to 31st. We've made a commitment that will, and in it that we will adjust according to how the borders open up or don't open up, what quarantine looks like. If we will have stars at JFL, even if we're going to their house or a venue in their neighborhood, if that's England, Sydney, Toronto, there will be shows in Montreal delivered in a safe way to the amount of people we're allowed to produce in front of. And then there will be an online piece to complement that. And based on where we are at, in 3 months from today, we will adjust according to put the best and most complete picture together. Anyway, that's really sort of what the year looked like. The good news for us is because we're a media company, that the transition to this approach was a more natural one. I know for some others it was a bit more challenging, but we have we have a team that was able to think this way because they were already thinking about how to do things online. Even our live business, like Nick's, that just stopped, we were able to go out and build a corporate business where we delivered comedians to people's homes, to charities, to corporate events, because that could be done online and that could be done quite profitably, not only for us as an organization who had no incoming live business, but for the artist that have to survive, because especially Canadian comics in this environment, it's been super tough. So luckily for us, we were able to not only book comedians that way, we did some drive-ins, Toronto, Montreal, and we continued to shoot our TV shows. Even if we had to move them from Montreal to Toronto and shoot them in front of 50 people, if we could do it in a first-class manner safely, we did it. And we delivered 3 series under COVID that I'm very proud of the team for delivering. So that's sort of a year in the life of JFL and what we went through.
And thank you so much for that, Bruce. And, to have seen what goes down under the hood, knowing all the moving pieces, hats off to you and the teams that were all involved in making this year, again, one that you guys can all be proud of, and looking forward to seeing what you guys do again this summer with the JFL festival, and moving forward. Again, I'm definitely behind you as an event producer ourselves with Mural Landmark, knowing that we have no choice to live somewhere in that hybrid space. And this segues very nicely to Nick. Looking forward to hear what's been going on the Evenko side. And again, thank you, Bruce. And Nick, off to you. I think everyone is also looking forward to hearing what's been going on the Evenko side.
I think for us it was a little bit different than everyone else, because literally the CH group, which is Evenko, Montreal Canadiens, everything we do is in front of people. So our entire our revenue is, I'd say, probably 99.5% stuff that happens in front of a live audience. So for us, the idea of pivoting was significant, because it was literally a completely new thing for us. We've been doing some dabbling into digital stuff over the years, and it's been, it was never anything that we made that was particularly lucrative, but it was just some stuff that we were kind of doing that related to our festivals. So the whole concept of what we were going to do once we realized how bad the pandemic was going to be was kind of earth-shattering. So we sort of looked at the different opportunities that were out there. We have a bunch of different festivals, as you can see from this lovely slide. We do stuff in small clubs, theaters, arenas, festivals, outdoors, and sports, obviously. So for us, it was really, how do we come up with anything that we can do over the next, we didn't know if it was going to be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 15 months, 18 months. We didn't know. So how could we kind of try to find a new way for us to create some interest in our festivals and some revenue coming in? And, from the beginning, the way we looked at it was whatever we were going to do would have to be fairly risk-free, and we didn't have a whole lot of money to invest in it. So we had to be creative, as our team has always been when it comes to putting together these sorts of things. So, we looked at doing the things that were out there, which was, can you do paid ticket streams? Can you do free streams? And we, dabbled in that. We did a few things that were we made a few bucks at that were successful-ish. But then we decided to, for the festivals that we knew right away weren't going to happen, which was the Franco and the Jazz, which were, in June and July, it was pretty obvious fairly quickly that they weren't going to happen. So we realized, we wanted to do something. We wanted to keep those festivals alive and make sure that the brands were strong and that people were able to see something and some kind of content and some sort of output from our creative team. Unfortunately, being complete content novices, we were not prepared for it at all. So it was an interesting, we'd spoken for years about how we needed to develop a content strategy, but this really forced us to come up with something on the fly, which, our team's very good at. So we did a Franco, a digital version, which went really, really well, and the team put together really quickly and used all the expertise of our teams that existed. We have production teams, we have people that are on the branding side, on the marketing side, and everybody kind of banded together and put together what we ended up doing with the festivals. And unlike Bruce, where none of we didn't have a whole lot of history in that world, so it was a little more, it was more difficult. And we were also looking at what was going on in the rest of the world and trying to figure out what would be compelling, what would be interesting. Because I think after about 3 weeks of seeing people performing on their balconies and in their living rooms and kitchens, we wanted to do something that was going to be of a value, a quality. We wanted to work with artists that were, going to put out something out there that was going to be interesting to watch and compelling. So we have a little clip of what we ended up, like a recap of the Jazz Fest, what we ended up doing for Jazz. Maybe we could run that.
On est parti sur le principe de le festival de jazz existe en extérieur gratuitement et ce qu'on fait en version numérique ressemble à ce qu'on aurait fait en extérieur.
Quand j'ai reçu l'appel de Laurent pour me demander d'animer le festival, je dois avouer que je me demandais un peu où ça s'en allait parce que on pensait pas, là, il y a quelques semaines, vivre un festival cet été. Il y en a quelques-uns qui s'ennuient de l'édition en plein rassemblement.
It's really amazing to just sit down and play some music, even if there's no audience, knowing that, that music will still connect with people at some point, it will find them.
There was just enough people all with masks on and everything around about doing various jobs to make it feel like it was still a performance, and everyone's been wonderful. So.
Il y a une puissance quand il y a une présence, ça c'est sûr. Puis la présence en ligne, je pense, prendra jamais le dessus là-dessus. C'est une belle chose, c'est le fun qu'on s'en rende compte, c'est le fun qu'on trouve des alternatives aussi.
De vivre un été sans festival de jazz physique, ça me fait mal. Mais là, on se met un petit plaster par-dessus ça, puis on se dit, en attendant, ça va être correct.
Ça va être beau, ça. Fait qu'on peut rouler partout.
On a tellement d'artistes, des propositions de ouf. T'sais, on peut faire un des meilleurs festivals au monde avec du talent d'ici. Et ça, c'est vraiment, vraiment unique.
C'est un peu une preuve de la proactivité, la créativité aussi des institutions qui ne veulent pas juste baisser les bras devant un challenge comme tout ce qu'on vit présentement, qui décident et qui montrent l'importance de garder la culture en vie de quelques moyens qu'on peut. Finalement, de voir les commentaires de gens qui nous écoutent partout dans le monde, mais vraiment, là, comme du Brésil à l'Inde, à plein de villes aux États-Unis, de Paris jusqu'à l'Italie. Bien, moi, ça me fait chaud au cœur de voir qu'il y a plusieurs personnes qui n'auront peut-être jamais eu l'occasion de mettre les pieds au festival de jazz, mais là, ils vivent avec nous ce soir.
Bravo! Do you want me to keep playing? We all good?
I think I'm running over on my time already, so I'm going to just kind of recap that real quick. What we found super interesting about the jazz was that a lot of the people that watched it and were people that had either not been to the festival in a long time or didn't really go, felt like something going to a crowded space wasn't what they were really into anymore. So we went out and found new fans, which was really cool. So I think on the discussion that everybody's been having in the hybrid events and how are things going to proceed in the future for us on all our festivals, I think, we're going to have some kind of digital component, whether it's streaming, whether it's pre-recorded, whether it's artist-driven content. I think it's an integral part of the business going forward. It will never replace live. Don't get me wrong. Like that is, people are like, oh, well, for us, we are a live event company. We could never even, dream of not, the live aspect is such an important part of what we do. So I think this hybrid approach of a different stuff that's going to relate to each festival in a unique way with that unique brand is super important. And finding, like I said, was speaking to you just prior, the compelling nature of what you're trying to do. We're looking at Osheaga for this year, and we're looking at all of our other projects, and we're like, how do we put something that is Osheaga jazz Franco, which is difficult to do because you're trying to do something, you're competing with a million other things on, people are sitting in front of their computers all day now. So how do you compete? How do you create content that is going to be something that people are going to take the time out of their day to watch? And I think that's going to be for the entire industry going forward. Last thing I'd say on it is on the streaming aspects too, is there's been some great partnerships. I think the sponsors and the partners that we've had throughout this pandemic, it's great to see that there are brands that are stepping up and doing stuff and helping artists continue to be able to make a living and providing the opportunities for people to perform in a semi-live sort of scenario.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Nick. And no, thank you so much. And I think, this echoes kind of the ligne directrice of this whole conversation is how can we bring the essence of our venue, our events, our festival to someone's home, do it in an authentic way, do it in a way that people will, give a hoot, because at the end of the day, watching content now, we are so overstimulated, especially now with the pandemic, we're realizing we can get, content or anything we want with 2 clicks. So we have to make sure it's compelling. And another thing that I, personally took away is this is also an opportunity to attract new audiences. It's to open those frontières and to, obviously, again, and I think Laurent Saunier from Jazz said it best in your video, Nick, is this is just a Band-Aid for live events. Let's be honest, nothing will replace the emotion and the feeling and the vibe we all seek when we go to events. I think, all of us here on the call, on the panel will, our industry is super related to the live portion of it, the physical portion of it. That being said, it's an opportunity in itself to attract that new audience, those new audiences, to open les frontières and to have people from all over the world. And to Bruce's point, see Montreal and the creativity of Montreal, and actually maybe entice them to want to, book a ticket and make their way here for the future year because they saw it through the digital version. And, before that ad spend that we would do to get people's attention, well, maybe we don't need to do that because that vitrine, the actual content piece that we're broadcasting becomes that, that draw for anyone that's tuning in around the world. So, well, Myriam, Nick, Bruce, thank you all so much for opening, kind of the doors and showing us what's been going on in your respective industries. I am seeing that on the chats, there hasn't been that many questions queued up. So I definitely want to encourage each and every one of you that's listening right now, please feel free to share your questions, comments, anything at all. We'll be happy to cover them at the end of our little Q&A that we're going to queue up right now. So, I'll start with a question. And then, whoever wants to answer first, and then we can open the dialogue. So, we all know that the pandemic's drastically changed the way we produce. We just, saw, obviously, your presentations on that. But in your point of view, what's the greatest learning or takeaway from what we've lived in the last year? And, how do we adapt our programming moving forward? And what's the production strategy moving forward? Is it mostly hybrid? And, to Nick's point, is it live first? Or a bit of both? Are we keeping some elements from what we've done? Like Myriam was saying, like this is something that is staying forever, which when you were talking about kind of VR at home, like this is now, no matter what happens, you guys are moving forward with that. So I'd love to open the dialogue about, what's worked, what do you forecast will work, and how are we moving forward with this?
Good questions.
Well, if you want me to start,
I mean,
no, Miriam, please go.
Go ahead. Miriam, go.
No, I was about to say, I think like for us at Phi, we definitely going to keep some of the learnings we made in the last year, and you just mentioned it that VR2Go is there to stay. I think regarding, let's say, like digital content, you know, I want to say like less is more. You don't have to produce content. It's not it has to be thought, you know, like it's not for content that you drop on the platform and just to keep to be seen and to keep a certain visibility. So I think less is more on that field. For me, I see really like that what we've learned for the last year is, yes, of course, and I agree with Bruce and Nick, like the physical part, the live part is the priority, but it has to be, now it's going to be like hand in hand, you know, with digital events, and so it has to be, it's complementary. I see that like that.
I totally agree. I think the strategy going forward is, although live is going to be the driver for our company for the foreseeable future, I think as we're planning things, the synergies that you see with what we're doing on a digital side, we're not just going to look at things in a strictly live way anymore. I think we're going to continue to look at opportunities, whether it's you know, through partners or through, you know, our own platforms, that we need to work not just as an afterthought. And I think that's where it comes in, is like the two are hand in hand, and your digital piece will not be something that's like, oh, something's got to be done for this, we have to create something around this. And I think one of the things that we haven't really mentioned is the price point for content creation in terms of the technology and stuff has, you know, dropped to the point where you can do something. I mean, you see it every day on your phones. The quality of content, the ability for anybody to produce it has changed drastically in the last 5 years. So that gives us a whole new opportunity to explore, you know, possibilities of recording in places that we couldn't record before, or, you know, producing stuff that's actually going to be of some value.
Absolutely. Listen, I would just advance. The approach for hybrid will be, you know, something very important to all our festivals. And I also think, you know, not to be, you know, too, you know, negative here, but I do believe we shouldn't assume there will never be another pandemic again. So I think the one thing that we can prepare ourselves with, at least with a level of confidence, is that, you know, the team I work with can deal with adversity. The team I work with has figured out ways to make money and to provide first-class content in a very difficult environment. If that's from the way we approach our festivals, to a TV show we sold to CBC 6 weeks after the pandemic started, when they called us and said, can you make something in quarantine? And we figured out a way to send camera packs to, I don't know, 22 comedians for a concept of a show that we produced called Humor Resources, where John Doerr was the human resources manager of comedy, because our producers, Adam and Dave, did not want it to look like a Zoom show. They found cameras that were of a very high standard, that were simple enough to operate by one person in a room by themselves, because we didn't want to impose any production person on anyone. Some people were okay with it, with the safe guidelines we used, but we shot a TV show that was great and didn't look like it was shot by one camera that was FedEx to them. All that learning will help us in the future, not only in terms of our imagination, the imaginative approach, but also that look how good it looks without spending a fortune. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just, yep. This is a question that I'm kind of grabbing from left field here, based on Nick's comment, and I think, it's something that will interest a lot of our viewers or listeners in regards to partners. And I know partners have a big role to play in the success of the industries that we're representing, the event industry, venues, anything that has to do with getting the funding to get artists, paid and dreams pretty much executed. What has been your experiences with these partners in terms of managing expectations? And to your point, Nick, some of them are really, really been super supportive in helping, industries that are more hit or I'd say almost crippled by the pandemic to still be able to enable artists, to enable, forward-thinking ideas. I'd love to hear you guys on what has been your experience, because I know, some of us have our own experiences with, different partnerships and their expectations, if you want. Would love to open the conversation on that.
You guys, my earbuds are dead. Hold on.
Armin, the question you're asking is were corporate sponsors and government are just sponsors in general being flexible in this environment?
Good clarification. I'd say more on the corporate side. And we can always also include the public sector as well, but more on the corporate side, knowing that, it's there's expectations and there's, you have to translate X into Y, and how, how's that experience been on each of your fronts, dealing with those expectations and managing those expectations, because that's a reality that we're all dealing with.
Yeah, well, I would say the experience has been largely positive, but I still think government could do more for live events, and I'm hoping some of those the supportive policies come to fruition sooner than later. But overall, it's been okay. But I do believe that we have to be a part of the solution too. It's not just put our hand out. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to, ask for support, but at the same time, then produce an event like we did in October, not some lazy, very high margin project that puts money back in the company to help defray the cost of what we're going through. We were able to contribute to the bottom line, but we also did not let the quality be affected. We felt like there was a standard that had to be delivered, and we were going to do that. And that's what we did. So I would say our experiences are mixed, but overall pretty good. Our sponsors are pretty supportive.
Yeah. Amazing.
Sorry about that, guys. Nick, sorry about that. I had to pivot from iPad to laptop. Technologically challenged.
Do you want me to repeat the question, or?
I caught part of it, but yeah, if you could just finish the end of it, that'd be great.
Well, quickly, how have sponsors, corporate or private, reacted and been supportive overall, knowing that it is a difficult situation this year? Have you found that they've been supportive? Yay, nay? How has that been on your end?
It's been really encouraging. I think there's been a huge support from, all levels of government to, across all, from artists to venues to everybody, literally in the ecosystem. I think there's been an understanding that this was going to be a long-term impactful thing on our industry, and it was encouraging to see that the industry was regarded with such high regard, that people, that they understood that if these small, venues, and if people went out of business and if artists couldn't make any money, it would be a huge problem going forward. So I think that's been a very encouraging part of this whole pandemic. The public partners, the private partners as well. We've had some great partnerships on our festivals and just stuff we do year round, where people have been really supportive. You've seen a bunch of brands step up and do things that in the space that has allowed people to be able to make some money and get through this whole thing. So I've been encouraged.
Same thing. I mean, I don't have much to add to that. I think what Bruce and Nick just said is sums it all. I really feel that our governments, like the city, the province, the federal, like they were responsive. It always can be done more, but I think they were very responsive. And if I compare to some friends I have in the industry in other countries, I think we're very privileged about this reaction of our like the public fundings for sure. But it cannot stop, because even though we are, let's say, reopening today for us, we're still in the middle of a crisis. So we need to be accompanied, you know, like it needs to go on for I don't know for how long, but it needs to go on.
Yeah, we need to sustain the same type of support. I totally agree, because, you know, although there is been some support, I think it can't end. We're not out of it yet at all. We need to continue. If we want to deliver high impact and amazing content and events and experiences, we need to have the support of public and private sector. So thank you all of you on that. And I'll just kind of throw another question that's a little less related to our topic and just kind of open the conversation around. It is related to the topic, but less towards our industries per se. But what have you seen that has really excited you, you know, either a digital experience or a phygital experience that was a mix of both, a hybrid event? You know, have you seen something that's really kind of caught your eye that you'd want to share? Anything at all? Because I think, you know, we're all living some form of Zoom fatigue, but there are some things that we've seen that stand out that we're really like in awe with, and you know, I'd love to hear you guys on things that you might have seen, if any, that has caught your eye in the last year.
Well, I can mention maybe a platform. It's called Yay. I discovered that during a festival. Well, I was in my living room, but I was attending a festival in Amsterdam called Lab, and we were having meetings in a Chinese restaurant, like a digital Chinese restaurant, around the table. You had like instead of a Zoom, it was really like you were around, like you had also food on the table, digital food, obviously, beers or whatever, but at least the ambiance, you know, felt, wow, okay, it was really a lot of fun. And then if you had enough of the Chinese restaurant, you could go to the bar and just like be teleported to the bar and have another meeting with other people in this digital platform. So this is something I think that's really interesting, and it's called Yay, Y-A-Y. They're doing
Awesome.
good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I at the beginning of this pandemic, just started to listen to every podcast, every Zoom comedy show, trying to see where there was gold and where we could learn something. And I have to say, some of the traditional podcasts I've really got addicted to. And you know, I know he's been around for a long time, but I really love Conan O'Brien's podcast, and I've been, you know, listening to that regularly. He's very funny, and also Sarah Cooper, who sort of exploded doing her Trump, you know, bits that launched a huge career. She was a potential new face, our discovery showcase at the festival, and a minute later, she's got a Netflix deal, and you know, she's one of the top names in show business. So that was impressive, and of course, her career got accelerated through this pandemic, and it, you know, obviously through every new horrible thing Trump was saying or doing. So, you know, Sarah was a real find, and we have, of course, added her to our online festival, you know, for all the reasons you would expect. So, you know, I dived into a lot more content, I would say. I watched a lot more, I listened a lot more, and, you know, and, you know, I think that was a very good opportunity for me to sit back and pay a bit attention to what was going down.
I think we all listen to more podcasts than we've ever listened to. I think it's unanimous. Nick, anything you saw that might have caught your eye or your attention?
I mean, honestly, you know, I try to think about where we would have been a few years ago if this had happened with, you know, I think the fact that everyone complains about Zoom and Teams and all those things is it's because we're on it all the time and it drives us all crazy. And it's not like being in a one-on-one conversation. But without those tools, I mean, I'm just blown away by how everybody in the world was able to pivot and start being able to accomplish things on these platforms that admittedly have had their challenges, but realistically, it's kept the world going. I would also say what I've been impressed with I'm a huge, as well as being a massive music fan, I'm a huge sports fan, and watching basketball and hockey and everything else, watching the way that they've been able to, at first, like I remember sitting down with my son and watching the first Raptors game and being like, I'm never going to get used to this. And then, 2 quarters in, I was sold. It didn't even matter anymore. I find the sports teams did such an excellent job. I mean, the coverage, all of did such an excellent job of taking it and turning it into something that was maybe not quite as good as the real thing, because without fans, anything isn't quite as good, but have done such an excellent job of making people want to watch it. I actually still consume sports and stuff because it's really well done.
Totally. I echoed that. I think,
I would agree with that too.
It came at such an important time too, right? Like in the lull of everything that was going on, we were like, what's going to happen? And we needed some form of, I guess, remnant of the past that we needed to latch onto and like huddle up around. And even though we couldn't physically huddle up around it, we could exchange about it and share about it. And yeah, I totally echo that. So thank you guys so much. I'd like to turn it to a few audience questions just, as we're running out of time. I know a lot of you did ask a lot of great questions. So if we could cue those up. Okay, so Guillaume Fontaine asks, one second, I have this over my little thing here. I'm going to go full screen. What is your take on what festival season will look like this summer? Good question. $1 million question.
The $1 million question. I think, it's so funny because I've been on, and millions and millions of calls, feels like, over the last year, and you go from suicidal to positive in a week, and things happen, you change your mind, and you can be on with the most pessimistic people in the world, and all of a sudden things start to change, and you can see shifts in different times during the pandemic, realizations of when things were going to start or not going to start. I think it was more realizations of when things weren't going to happen. I would say I'm cautiously optimistic about things returning this summer because what's happening in the UK. I know we're a bit behind on vaccines, but we have fewer people, so hopefully we can catch up. But UK's just said that they're going to open up as of June 21st for no restriction festivals. So that's a hugely encouraging sign for everybody in the festival world, because the UK is the largest festival market, bar none. So that's encouraging. And then I see the signs of I think we'll definitely be some of the festivals this summer will be more digital than physical, but I feel like we will be able to present something on a physical side of our goal is to present our festivals in especially the ones later in the summer in their entirety. That would be the ultimate. Is that realistic? It's hard to say. Things change. Like I said, 2 weeks ago, I was on international calls, where people were like, it's over, forget about the summer. And then 2 weeks later, I was on a call yesterday with a bunch of buyers from around the world on the festival buyers, and everybody, it was a completely shifted conversation. So, will that shift again in 2 weeks if there's other variants, it's hard to say, but I think we're in the position right now where for the summer, at least from our point of view, we can take we can wait, our go, no go for when we actually have to finally make decisions isn't for a little bit yet. But at the same time, it's important that, that these decisions are made fast enough so that we can pivot and actually be able to deliver what we want to deliver. So that's going to be the real trick, I think, is getting, we can't find out in June that we can do a festival in August because there won't be enough time. But if we find out, if things start looking good in end of March and we start looking positive in April, then we can start to transition to what we think that capacity is going to be.
Yeah, I don't even think, audiences can even fathom how much puzzle moving around it takes on the programming and on the festival operations side to have a plan A all the way through Z and the whole gamut of different scenarios.
We're
I
inventing
feel the
new letters in the alphabet. We got like plan double Z, you know, it's ridiculous. There's so many different configurations, and like, I don't even want to think about it anymore. It's like, I just want things to be over and be able to do things normally again. But, you know, we'll adapt. And I think the key in like for every one of us, and going back to something that we talked about earlier, is that we can do 250 capacity. We reopened at 250 and it was safe at L'Étoile and at the MTELUS. But to make money at that capacity is impossible. So, you know, we're part of the solution. We will find ways to put on shows and bring people to our venues safely, using all of the, you know, every technology that we have to make sure that people can enjoy things in a safe fashion. But, you know, as going back to the government piece and everything else, it's not, you know, if we have to do Osheaga with 5,000 people or 500 people or 1,200 people, it's not the same. Like, the math doesn't work the same way. So we're going to need some kind of clarity. The way the UK's done it is, and, you know, Alberta's doing something similar with the amount of people in hospitals that is, you know, at a certain point, certain things open up. So at least it gives you some kind of picture as to how things progress. And I think we just have to wait and make sure that we get through this second wave and third waves and whatever's happening, and then make smart decisions going forward.
So, and not to cut this. Oh, go ahead quickly, Bruce, but I definitely want to hear.
No, I'm just going to say very quickly that I agree entirely with what Nick said. I mean, we're going to do a festival no matter what, because we will just adjust the amount that's online versus live. But everything he said, it aligns with my thinking as well.
If we had a crystal ball, I think if Guillaume, you were looking for that secret answer, we don't. We're all on the outside looking in and have plan A to double Z, as Nick mentioned. I'll go right away to another question from Simon Tremblay. There are different challenges in bringing an artist in the audience's living room and at the same time bringing the audience in front of the artists. I'd be curious to hear about how you overcame these challenges.
Yeah, listen, for comedy, it's a really challenging thing without an audience. So one of the reasons we didn't dive in right away and produce content without audiences was that we felt we wanted to wait to at least people in Burlington, Ontario. We moved to Burlington, Ontario just to go to better COVID conditions. You know, so we went out of our way to at least provide enough audience response to make it work for comedians, because I'm not saying musicians can live without an audience, but if you're doing humor, waiting for the laughter, it just knocks your timing off entirely. It's a pretty difficult thing. And the one thing that we did online quite successfully, we did an Instagram live show. We did it on YouTube a couple times. We had the Sklar brothers introducing comedians as, you know, we did a little online JFL show, you know, a couple of weeks into COVID, just to get out there and to get sure. And the reason it worked is they're twins and they're on screen, you know, you can hear them when the performer is performing wherever they're performing somewhere in the world. And the two of them were laughing. You know, honestly, 2 people was enough for that problem because they're generous audience. But, you know, at all cost, we tried to figure out a safe way to put any amount of people in a room. If it was 2, the Sklar brothers, or 50 when we're shooting a show for Bell in a theater in Toronto that John Doerr hosted, we felt the audience piece was essential. And let me tell you, in September of this year, having an audience in front of comedians, they both were so happy with each other. Audiences had not seen anything, and comics had not had an audience laugh at anything they'd done for 6 months. So even modest success in that level was a big win because they just hadn't seen it in 6 months.
We saw that you clearly also in the way you adapted to programming. It wasn't just comedy specials. It was in conversations. It was Q&As. It was, you know, you had no choice to adapt that. Perhaps we could jump to another question unless, you know, someone else had another point or an interjection. Okay, last question. Just because we're running out of time. This has been such an interesting panel. Okay, Maca Jazz, video Evenko. on peut faire les meilleurs festivals du monde, this is a French question, du monde avec des artistes d'ici. Est-ce que les festivals feront vraiment une plus grande place aux artistes locaux émergents à la reprise? Quickly translated, we have best festivals in the world with local artists. Are festivals really fighting to make a place for local and emerging artists?
Personally, I mean, our goal ever since we started our festivals has always been to be, to have a platform for local artists to excel, to be able to play with some of the biggest artists in the world. I think is a super motivating thing for an artist to have. So it's always been a priority for us. As some of our festivals have gotten bigger, it gets more challenging. We've gotten to the point of continually growing and adding more stages and doing more things to be able to ensure that we have a local artist represented in both languages, obviously. So it's incredible to see. Canada is kind of the envy of a lot of other people when we talk about these calls. When I'm talking on these calls, and I'm like, we can do stuff. Like we can reopen our clubs in 2 weeks and have enough local content, enough local people that will go see their own stars and their own comedians, their own musicians. So we don't have to wait for the international to come back in order to be back in business, which is it's an amazing thing to have that opportunity. So I guess to just finish on that question, yes, I honestly believe we'll continue to honor, the fact that we have amazing artists in Canada and in Quebec, and we'll continue to make a place for them. And I think digital will also give us another window to be able to art.
If I may add there, even though we're not a festival, we had I spoke earlier about the syndication series we did during the summer, like shooting live concerts on the roof of the center. This was really made not only, but a lot for emerging artists. The presence of local emerging artists was very, very important for us in that series. And the infrared series I just told you about, which we launched last week, actually. Jeremy Dutcher, who is there tonight, is not an emerging artist anymore. But if you look at the programming that we are offering for the next, I think we still have another 2 weeks to go or so. It's really like a beautiful platform, beautiful visibility for local emerging talent. And it's really important at Phi that we put the spotlight on emerging artists.
And thank you so much, Miriam, Nick, and Bruce. Guys, we're running out of time, so unfortunately we'll have to end the conversation. I think we could have talked for a few other hours and have a lot more engagement with the audiences. And I thank each and every one of you for your time and the energy you brought for this panel. And it was a pleasure moderating this chat with you guys. And I hope we see brighter days for the events industry. I know they're ahead, and good job on all the amazing work you and your teams are doing in all of your fields respectively. And it was a real pleasure. So I'd like to pass it back off to the Zoo team, who will wrap things up. And thank you again, everyone, for tuning in.
Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and thank you to the amazing panelists and Armand for this amazing talk. If you guys enjoyed today's talk, know that there's a lot more Horizon conferences coming your way. So next one up is Wednesday, March 10th, same time. It's an exclusive conversation with David Morin, Epic Games Industry Manager for Film and TV. Lastly, for those who received an invitation, the Buzz Zone networking event is going to start shortly, so make sure you migrate that way. And thank you, everybody. Have a great day.